Welcome back. Back again.
We are back. Tell some friends.
Oh, I was doing Eminem.
Yeah, I know. I was following it a little bit. But
oh, okay. Hello.
We can't rap all of Eminem's song.
Do you like M&M's? The peanut butter ones are the best.
Either peanut or peanut butter ones. I like them both.
Yeah. I just want an M&M to be a Reese Piece is what I want.
That's fair. That's fair. Reese Pieces are great. Did you ever eat the Reese Puff cereal?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Delicious. Cuts your mouth, just like Cocoa Puffs.
Oh, yeah. Lacerations. By the way, this fan that we just got behind the camera, you can't see it, but we can. We feel a breeze.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's like chilly.
Well, I've got a hoodie, so it's nice to me. This is going to be great once summer fully rolls in.
So hopefully the camera doesn't overheat anymore. I love this camera, but that's the one B. If you sit here for an hour and this thing is just toast. Mm-hmm. But hopefully not anymore.
I sit here an hour and I'm toast.
So maybe look forward to longer podcasts. I don't know.
4-hour podcast.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we've been going through the rise of AI, right? We've seen crazy technological improvements in every aspect of our lives, but I thought maybe we take a beat to show some appreciation for the tech of the past. So I was thinking maybe we could talk about some of the most overlooked or underappreciated technology in music.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So my mind initially goes to like MIDI, for example.
Okay. I see where you're going.
Try to find a modern record that doesn't have MIDI somewhere.
And in multiple forms.
Yeah.
Like we say MIDI, but that's like a blanket statement for so many things. But yeah, I mean, when did MIDI come out? Like,
I'll find out.
80s or late 70s, early 80s?
So I haven't looked it up yet. My guess is invented in the late 70s and then got kind of popularized in the 80s. But I could be totally wrong. I'm no historian.
And I mean, I'm going to be shooting from the hip here. So,
all right, Wikipedia, what do you have to say? Isn't it crazy that invented in 1983?
Okay.
All
right.
Isn't it crazy that when we were in school, Wikipedia was but a fledgling, just getting started, and definitely we could not quote it in any kind of paper or anything.
Can you now?
You know, who knows? But it's considered more reputable these days.
It's like the encyclopedia of the people.
Of the people.
This is a societal test. Can we police ourselves to give ourselves good information?
Isn't that what all information is? It's whatever somebody decides to write down and they agree on.
Oh, we're getting deep.
Ooh.
We're getting deep.
Before we dive into it, welcome back to Fan and Power Hour. I'm Josh.
And I'm Jeremy.
And if you're new here, welcome. Thanks for being here. Maybe after you stay for a few more minutes, you like what you see, you hit the subscribe button, you hit the like button. And if you've already done that and you just want more and you want to meet more people and have a good time, then you can join the Discord. We had a handful of people roll in.
Yeah. It's actually been pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about Discord, but I think I'm going to like it.
I think so.
Come on in.
Come on in.
The water's fine. But when you said if you're new here, I heard if you're nude here.
Both.
I don't know
welcome.
if you can say that on YouTube.
I'm not going to judge.
And then when you say, do you want to see more? That means something different. That is not on our Discord.
We haven't launched our OnlyFans yet. So
you haven't. I'm making nothing yet.
Well, because he spent it all on building the studio. That's how it was originally funded.
I'm feeling sassy this morning.
I have a wild story from one of the gigs that I played a couple weeks ago regarding all of that. I can't really tell on camera, but it's crazy and hilarious and just very unexpected. So
go on.
We were playing at
oh God. Okay. None of
that can go in there.
I'm really sorry you couldn't hear that. Maybe we put this stuff on Discord.
That'd be fun. Well, we could do that. We could clip that out.
If you want to know what we just talked about,
yep.
Discord's for you.
Discord's for you.
Wow.
But one of the rules is to try to keep it family friendly. or
that
at least
was not family friendly.
no. Maybe there's like a private Discord server. I don't know.
Anyway.
Anywho, so MIDI.
Technology. Fire. Can you do that again?
I can do that again. I've got all the overlays saved in a special little folder.
I'm going to come up with weird ones.
I'll find some weird solutions then. So MIDI was the first thing that kind of popped in my mind as what is a technology that's integral to music production, sound design, all that today that hasn't really been around for all that long, you know? What's something that pops in your mind?
I mean, just the interfaces as a whole and the technology in one box.
Yeah.
That you can do it. We take like for absolute granted right now. Like I have the Neve 88M right over there across the room. That is a bus powered, effectively 10 in, 10 out.
Yeah.
Completely bus powered, killer headphone amp. Like that, thinking about that existing like 10 or 15 years ago was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I mean, there was stuff you were doing like ADAT audio and we had USB interfaces. I don't know if it was USB, but just the technology inside of an interface now is crazy.
It's insane. And even some interfaces, including like their own DSP, things of that nature too.
And anymore, like DSP's like yawn, who cares? Like it's almost like I don't want to pay for that. My computer does that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that whole side of the discussion is kind of boring, but even that in and of itself is like, look how far we've freaking come.
So far and so quickly too. I mean, really in the grand scheme of things, so much has happened so fast. But could you imagine going to the like old cats in, I don't know, the 60s or 70s and saying like, hey, we're eventually going to have this box and you can record simultaneously more channels than you're currently doing with technically not having to power it really like from the wall or anything. And oh yeah, all these preamps you have, that's also built into there. This whole desk that you have can fit into that little box, and this whole other system of racks and desks and all that other stuff is going to be on this little thing we call a computer. And
it's not going to heat your entire building.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to ventilate it in a way that's not going to make the room too hot. It's bonkers, but it's like it kind of goes back to I might completely derail this conversation.
That's good. Do it.
But it goes back to like the whole like tape versus computer thing. And it's like the technology does not matter. It's like your intention behind it. So all this stuff has gotten way easier. And if you take one of those cats from the 60s, like what you're talking about, who knew what they were doing way more than most anybody making music now. Like these guys were scientists.
Oh, yeah.
And you give them the technology today. Like, could you imagine what kind of records could be made? Or would they be boring? Like,
would they adopt the same type of mentality that a lot of, maybe not a lot of, but some current people have adopted in terms of here is this proven cookie cutter design and now I just apply myself to that and here is my music.
Which even existed back then.
For sure.
Like there was, I mean, it's kind of like survivorship bias. Like we look at the ones that survived and are still popular, like they were groundbreaking and most of them were at the time, but there were also just as many knockoffs and like labels trying to recreate somebody else's sound and it just didn't work out. So there was a lot of cookie cutter stuff back then, but I think about what could be done. Like thinking about the Beatles recording like Sgt. Pepper's, and they were like, let's go crazy.
Yeah.
Let's do stuff we can't do live. And what could they do now? Or would they just look at this and go like, this is boring because there is no limit. We have no limitations. So
there's no more constraint to work within.
Yeah. So therefore you're not going to work as hard to get what you want. I mean, how many times have you heard a band who has everything going for them? And I mean, recording can still be expensive. I don't want to downplay that. But you can also go get everything you need to do it yourself, and a lot of bands do, and they fail. And why is that? Is it the options that are making you successful? Mm-hmm. The technology that's what making you successful. It's still the skill set. So it's using the tools in a way that would like realize your overall vision. And I think where you get lost in those weeds, because things are so easy and we have so many plugins and we have so many different ways to do it, and we can edit it to make it lock to a grid, like it kind of makes people lazy. I think
it can. I think there's another aspect too, not to go too gym bro on you, but one kind of exciting thing about wandering into a new gym is the different equipment. Mm-hmm. And so you have this stimulus through variety. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy that in a studio too. I'm a bass player 9 out of 10 times I'm in a studio. So the gear that I use doesn't really change too often unless they have a house amp or a house rig they really like. And then I normally like to use that because, I don't know, I get to experience something different a little bit. But going in different studios, sometimes they have a library of instruments or some vintage gear that you don't really get to see anywhere, or different mic setups. Even just like the different drum room is going to give you a different sound and stuff. So as a player or a musician, singer, songwriter or something, I think that it's not the solution, or maybe not even a solution for people. But when all of your work is taking place in your bedroom or your own home studio with your own rig and your own gear and your own setup, I could see how you could find yourself in a creative rut that, it doesn't mean going to a different studio provides different limitations, but more ease of access to some gear or ways of thinking about a sound that you on your own wouldn't necessarily think about.
There's a big thing of getting out of your comfort zone and working with other people and bouncing ideas off that like teaches you how much you actually know about a process. And I know for me, if I'm just trying to create something by myself, like I'm very not motivated to do it. And oftentimes it turns out way worse.
Yeah.
Because it's like having those other people around and those other ideas just kind of elevates everybody.
Yeah. I mean, creating a piece of art as a think tank definitely can have drawbacks depending on the group that you have, for sure. But I think, at least in pretty much all of my experiences, it's been, a really rewarding aspect of it. And like you said, it kind of stems the fire a little bit more. Everybody's like small increase of excitement kind of just fills the room, and it's something that catches everybody, I think, and it keeps growing and growing until like you can't wait to finish it and put it out. But doing stuff on my own, it's more like it will never be done. It's not ready. I keep changing my mind on, I could do this better, I could do this. Plus, you're the only one it's representing. So now it feels solely like
it's personal.
It's so personal, so personal.
There's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah.
I even I'm doing that right now with a song, and I keep sending it to other people. Like, tell me this sounds like crap, please. Like, help me find what's wrong with it. And they're like, no, it sounds good. It sounds pretty good. We're done. But it's not done.
But it could be.
Could be. I don't know.
That's one of the toughest things, man. And I hope I'm not the only one, or we're not the only ones that feel that way. I would imagine it's a very widely felt dilemma of being an artist of any kind, is just, you can always keep changing stuff or taking parts out or striving towards it being perfect. But somewhere along the line, you just got to turn it in. You just got to submit.
Done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
But that's also easier said than done.
So much easier said than done. So we barely touched on MIDI, but you mentioned that there's so many different contexts that MIDI gets used.
Yeah.
Right. So we have, just all based on MIDI, we have like these effects brains for pedal boards that can route just this group of pedals in every which way you could imagine, pre-program those settings, even change settings on other MIDI powered devices. But then you have keyboards that you can hook into a computer or even other MIDI module and get all these different sounds. You can tether multiple keyboards together because you like the feel of the Juno, but you want the sounds of the Jupiter.
Yeah.
And now you have MIDI over USB, which just makes all that even more seamless and streamlined and useful. You have MIDI signals that can be triggered for lighting, for fog machines in a live scenario. What can't MIDI do other than send audio itself?
It's so nice. Like in a live context, I run front of house quite a bit, and we'll run an Ableton rig. And I mean, the band's doing what the band's doing on stage, and Ableton is taking care of like tracks and some stuff, but it can also fire cameras and screens and the fog machine, and it's triggering the tuning software that's like, so transitions between songs, it's turning off tuning. And then when it hits like bar 2 of the next song, it's going to click on and switch it to the correct key.
Yeah.
So nice. And that's going like from an Ableton rig on stage to front of house to my Wave sound grid back to the console. It's so nice.
Well, going back to your kind of thought experiment of what would the engineers of the yesteryears do with a modern studio setup or modern interface and that technology, what would the bands be doing right now, implementing that kind of stuff into their live performance? Like Pink Floyd, what would Pink Floyd have been if they had access to all this automation and technology at their fingertips?
Buddy. Speaking on live performance, like the technology back then for live sound was pretty limited. And the PAs sucked.
Yeah.
Like if you could hear the vocal, it was a good day.
Yeah.
Right. And so you see all these old shows and these live performances, and I'm reading a few books on them now. And I mean, this is getting off the point, but I just think it's interesting, and a lot of people kind of hold these bands up to something that they're not. And let me explain. So the Beatles having live shows that came out on video and they were broadcast and all that stuff. So the people want to rag on live bands now because, they may be lip syncing. Well, I don't really know, but they're probably doing it. Well, they can't do it like the old guys used to do it. No, the Beatles lip synced everything.
At their dropping some knowledge on them today, Jeremy.
Live show. I mean, they were a great band, right? Fantastic band. But when this is getting ready for broadcast, they took the band to a broadcast stage and they picked the room based on how bad the room sounded because the PA sounded bad. They wanted to match it. And then they recorded the whole show so that it could be broadcast and it sounded decent. So like, I don't know. That's kind of another point for another time. But it's not like they were so limited that they got it perfect every time. They absolutely did not. So I think I kind of contribute to that, say people get lazy today, but it happened in the past too.
Yeah.
So we're just using the tools at our disposal at every single stage that we have.
Well, I mean, you could. I've always been on the fence about tracks and lip syncing, and we talked some about it a little bit before, where I appreciate tracks if they add to kind of the experience and the emotional context and value. I don't love tracks when they're just there to be there, or when they're not done very well. But that aside, lip syncing, I really love small, intimate shows with the flaws and the human nature of it. And I think I always will. And I think there's a lot of people that resonate with that. However, if I'm going to a Taylor Swift show, right, and I'm paying $1,000 for a ticket.
Is that how much it costs?
Some places. Yeah.
Way to go, Tay-Tay.
I'm going to want to enjoy my experience, not worry about, vocal mic feedback, if they even have that problem at that kind of caliber, or any of the variables that could go wrong. And at the end of the day, it could all be, it could all be lip synced, and I would probably enjoy that more than not being lip synced and having some issues. And you see where, like, some of the really big artists, they get bit either way. Either they lip sync and people call them out and they hate it.
Yeah.
Or they don't lip sync and they have a voice crack, and that's what all of like people on the internet are talking about. And it's not, I don't know. It's not fair either way. You can't have it both ways. But my initial point being, with the Beatles and that example that you gave, you could argue that it's lazy to do, but they actually had to do more work to pull that off and to provide as good of a live experience to their fans as possible.
Well, the live show was live. It's like the filming for the broadcast portion of it was overdubbed so that it sounded good for broadcast.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I misspoke, but yeah.
So, and I mean, that still happens today. That happens with and I rarely see live shows where vocals are lip synced. Lip sunk?
Lip sunk?
What is the past tense?
I think it's synced, but I like lip sunk more.
Lip sync?
Lip sync.
I don't know. I've never actually seen an instance. I mean, I know they're out there. I personally haven't heard of them. And I've been to live shows where you hear the human things. And I freaking love it.
Yeah.
Because there's also, what was it? Who was at the Super Bowl? It was
That's
Usher
what was in my
and
That's what was in my mind when I talked about somebody's voice cracking.
was it Alicia Keys?
I don't think so. We are not sports ball folks, if you can't tell.
Yeah, it was Alicia Keys. At the
Was
Super
it?
Bowl.
Okay.
Let me pull this up so I don't look like a total moron. Yeah, Alicia Keys. So everybody went crazy on her for that voice crack. But the girl was out there performing in an arena. Like, could you imagine the adrenaline you're gonna have? Two,
and you're gonna do it regardless of how you feel.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
and she killed the rest of it.
Oh, yeah.
There was one little thing.
And it is Alicia Keys. I love Alicia Keys. She's so good. If you've never seen the Alicia Keys with John Mayer combo live performance, it is a must watch. It is so tasty. Very, very good.
It kind of stems from like how many videos you see of like the four people singing in a kitchen, and it's like obviously insanely tuned, or they're outside on a beach and the same thing. It's like there's no way in all possible hell that I could hear all four of you that clearly outside tuned. And it's just so blatantly fake, but people are like, that's how you sing. That's what sounds good. And it's really a bummer.
It is. And we had one of our early episodes talking about that whole social media dilemma and how it inflicts musicians. But I think it's good and bad, and it's up to the individual to kind of take it in a positive way if they can muster that. Because one of the benefits of, if you're a vocalist and you see a video like that and maybe you don't understand the technology enough or kind of how recording works enough to realize that it is tuned up, it is cleaned up and all of that, then it's like a new 5-minute mile for you as on a personal level. If you hear it, you can be like, oh, well, maybe I can reach that.
I see that, but I also, like, this is something I've thought about a lot. Because, I mean, I've also sang in barbershop, like, nerdy. So
you get the glasses pushed up and everything.
So to that point, like, there's like technique and there's story, right? And anything that pushes people to improve technique, I think, is awesome. But if it comes at the expense of story and emotion and storytelling, I think that is boring.
Yeah.
Because you can be technically perfect, and it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
How many metal records have you listened to where somebody's like ripping a solo or like this just crazy riff? I mean, and there was it the 2010s where every metal record, people were just trying to out-riff each other, but all the songs were so boring.
Yeah.
And it was technically incredible. Like, the performances were amazing, but it was like everything was written by, what was it, Guitar Pro?
Yeah, yeah.
The software, and like, you would write these crazy parts and then try to learn them, and then hyper edit it, and then
play it slow and then double the speed.
Yeah, so you just had this like string of like, well, that's a dope riff, but I'm never gonna think about it again.
Yeah,
and I think that gets to the point of like, yes, the technique is awesome, but if it's completely soulless, who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
And not to say that those are mutually exclusive, because they're not. But that's my concern with something like that, is if like my daughter, who's now, she loves music, she has a good ear, she's really interested in it. And I'm not saying that she's doing this, but if she watches those videos and she's like, that's how music is made.
Right.
Like, hang on, little girl. Let me talk to you for a minute. Like,
right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I know they can coexist, those two things, like technical perfection and really good storytelling, but most of what we see is just technical perfection.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel so old talking about this right now. This is like my old man rant right now.
I think it's an important thing to talk about, though. And I like to hope that most people are aware of what's going on in that kind of scenario. Maybe they don't necessarily know that this 4-piece vocal group was tuned and edited and all that. But I don't know, man. I hope that a vast majority of people knows what it feels like when something impacts you more than, wow, this is very clean and tight and in tune. This moves me. This tells me a story. It makes me feel something. But again, going back to it, I'm always going to be on team. Let me hear the flaws. Let me hear the raspy breath before you go into it, or you chipped a note when you were going too high, or you were just a little out of tune. I think Adam Neely has a really good video on what would Led Zeppelin sound like if the vocals were tuned, and you hear it and it is on paper better, but you listen and it doesn't feel good anymore. It's those little imperfections.
And that you can wrap this right back around to technology too, because I mean, there's so many instances in here where I'm recording individuals who haven't worked in studio a ton, and I mean, I get it. When you're doing a recording, you want it to represent you the best way it possibly can, and I try to communicate to people like, well, all a recording is a snapshot of who you are in this moment, and if you understand what you're trying to say and you're telling a story, that's going to be way more impactful, because I can fix things like pitch and I can fix timing, but I can't fix passion. There's no passion plugin that I can put on your voice.
Not yet. AI has to get a little bit better.
But I'm thinking about one instance where there was this girl who came in and sang, and I just freaking loved the part. And there was like the smallest voice crack, and she went into this gravelly thing when she went up to a high note, but man, the emotion was there. And I was like, I love it. And she wanted to do it again. I said no. Came into the control room, took a listen to it, and it was just obvious like she really was not liking where it was. And it's not my project.
Yeah.
So like I can give my 2 cents and be like, you are telling the perfect story right now. Like that little thing that's all you're hearing, because in your mind that was a mistake. Like it blows right past that for me. Like I hear like the tension in the voice, like it's married to this kind of storytelling that you're doing and the struggle of the song itself. Like prosody wise, it lined right up with what she was singing, and she wanted to go back and do it again, and she did it technically perfect. And to this day, that song bores the crap out of me now. And all I remember is like, man, if we had stuck on that one take.
Yeah, it would give you something that satisfies that human element a little bit more.
It's so hard to communicate, because as an artist, you want to represent yourself the best you possibly can. And it's hard to really be aware to those points where like, dang, you made me feel something in that moment.
Yeah.
Where to you, it's like, I just messed something up. Like you may have gotten caught up in the moment, and then you get a little embarrassed because it's a vulnerable state in that. So I think it's easier to hide behind those technical things. Like if we can make sure our pitch is on and we make sure our timing's on, like it's easier to kind of separate yourself emotionally from those moments because we have all the technology that we do. Whereas if this was on tape,
that's it.
That's the take. Like you could do it again, but the time it takes is so much longer, and then we don't have any other takes to pull from.
Yeah.
So are you sure you want to get rid of this really good take that we have? And maybe I would have fought harder to keep it. So there's definitely instances where technology can kind of be the bane of the outcome.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's still bands that record on tape for that reason. And it kind of wraps back around to, it's not how you're recording, like this tape versus computer or MIDI versus real piano. It's what's your mindset when you go into the performance space. Because if you can take all this technology for what it's worth and have it in your back pocket and use it when you need it, not thinking about it like this is what's going to save this project, so we don't need good takes. And
not thinking about, I don't need a good take because, you know, it doesn't really matter how in tune I'm going to sing. I'm going to fix all that.
Yeah.
Playing this keyboard part, I can scuff it up as much as I want. I can really just draw in the notes that I want with MIDI. Like, that is, you're not even trying to inject the passion into it anymore. You're just trying to get another product onto the shelf for people to put in their ear holes.
Yeah. But everybody wants their ear holes filled.
Who doesn't?
Is there? That's what she said in there. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I hope not.
Gross.
Grody. Another kind of music technology aspect that I think goes really underappreciated is the fact that we now can have little power amps inside of speakers that sound really good.
Power amps inside of speakers.
Yeah, little like we can have powered monitors.
Oh yeah.
And that's like the studio side, but even at home, you can have a massive sounding, high quality sound system, and you don't need an amplifier and cabinets of speakers. I mean, you might still want those because you can push way more air and it sounds awesome. But
yeah, and that was a whole thing. I don't hear about it nearly as much now, but when I first opened the building, that was a big thing I was thinking about. Do I want to go active or passive? And there's a whole camp of people who will say passive because you need this crazy amp that goes with this one particular speaker, like pairing your coffee with, I don't know, I'm not that into coffee, but it's a bad allegory. Is it an allegory?
It's definitely not alliteration.
I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. I need more coffee. But with the putting like amps into speakers, active speakers, as we call them nowadays, it was not very like widely accepted in the beginning. And even up to like 5 years ago, you still hear people complaining about it. I don't hear it so much anymore. There are definitely those cats who want those specific amps because they treat the transient in a very particular way, and I totally get it. I really like having active speakers, especially for like certain constraints in certain rooms. And if you want to be flexible with a setup, be able to move it and be able to tune it in certain way. Like, there's just so much less you have to worry about with an active speaker if you can find a good one.
Yeah.
Because there are bad ones and there are bad passive speakers. But
well, I think in pretty much every category, you're always going to have the equivalent of the hi-fi world where they want to have this, you know, really cool amplifier, and they want to have the, what are they called? Like the plate-driven speakers where it's like a flat planar speakers, I think they're called. You're going to have all of that. But on a consumer side, like, you can just go and spend $20 and get a Bluetooth speaker that connects to your magic little box and plays any music in the world that you could want to come up with, and take that anywhere with you.
And they sound pretty good.
Like, maybe 30 years ago, my lifetime ago, if you wanted to do that, you had to get a boombox and you had to carry it around, and you had to have big old fat batteries for it. And they really didn't sound that great in the first place. So I don't know. I think that those types of things get overlooked. That same type of idea and technology now allows you to have these wireless headphones that you put in your ear, and some of those sound like, what am I trying to say here? There's always room for something to sound better. Mm-hmm. But you go and get a $30, $40 pair of wireless earbuds from your local store, whatever it is, and that is most likely going to be better sounding than a large majority of things that existed 15, 20 years ago.
That is a good point. There's a fair majority of them that are going to sound worse, though.
This is also true.
Just because of QC.
This is also true.
But
that's in the $5 bin, though.
I'm continually impressed by my AirPods. Like, I feel like that technology, like the completely wireless things, which I thought were so stupid when they first came out. I was like, I'm never going to get a pair.
I'm going to lose these. I have to charge it. Why would I want that?
It was so stupid. And I've now bought 2 sets for me. They're not the greatest headphone that I've ever listened to. Mm-hmm. But it's like, if this is the average of what a consumer is hearing, like, that ain't bad.
Not bad at all.
Like, and I know there's so much contention around, like, well, why do we go through the recording process for somebody to stream it as an MP3, Bluetooth it to another device, have this crappy D to A, and then listen to it on AirPods? It's like, that experience isn't as bad as we make it out to be, and it's getting better. Mm-hmm. Year after year after year. Like,
it's a better experience than the way you put it is great. Like, if this is what the average experience is, then that's really good. That's kind of the idea I was trying to go for, and you had way better words for it. But yeah, like when I was in elementary school or whatever, maybe it was middle school, I don't know, but the non-skip Walkman CD player where the CD actually clicked in, it's still for sure skipped.
Oh, it definitely did.
So I had to sit on the bus holding it like this. Mm-hmm. But it had the Walkman on-ear foam headphones. And I feel like that was around the average listening experience of those times. But like an AirPod versus that? Come on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I remember walking around with one. And like, you just held it like a pizza, like you were a waiter.
Yeah. You just had and then you got cargo shorts. That way, when you did get the non-skip one, you could slide it in the big pocket. And the headphone cable wouldn't quite be long enough.
Yep. I remember my first MP3 player blew my mind. It was, I wish I still had it. I don't even know what it was called. It was like this little blue, like pill-shaped thing, and it held maybe 100 songs, but that blew my freaking mind.
So right before that happened, when I learned, so I got maybe it was my mom's car, but there was a aftermarket CD player that could read data from CDs. Not just read them as audio CDs. So back in the day, when you had to burn a CD, at first you could just burn audio, and it was automatically formatted that way. You could fit, I think it was 60 minutes of audio around there, something like that, maybe 80 for the better CDs. But eventually, you could use just like a commercial at-home CD burner for data onto these CDs, and then these aftermarket CD players could now read data. So instead of being limited to a time frame for how much music, you now had a data limit. And it was like 700 megabytes or something. I could be way off. I could be way off. But way more than one CD in terms of like audio could handle. So I started making like folder hierarchies on my burnt CDs of like, here's my totally not torrented Snoop Dogg stuff and my totally not torrented Avenged Sevenfold stuff. You know what I mean? But
you got to appreciate that kind of time frame of music piracy and what it did to like the eccentricities of everybody's listening patterns today.
Yeah. And you had to want to listen to it. Mm-hmm. At least I did. I had dial-up in it. I had to leave my computer on allegedly, I had to leave my computer on overnight to get one song. Yeah. And then pray that when I woke up, something didn't go wrong.
So what was it? Napster? You had to, they would tell, what was it, Napster? When you connected, it was like, hey, you're connected to this many individuals.
Oh, yeah.
You have this many streams coming in, like, allegedly.
I had, if I had done that, I would have used Kazaa.
Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. What was it?
LimeWire was another one. I never hopped on the Napster train. I think by the time I had internet at home, we were out in the country and stuff, so we had to wait a little bit longer. Yeah. I think the whole Napster thing was being in the middle of like shut down, or I remember like all the controversy started coming up about it. And so
there was immediately something else to take its place.
Oh yeah.
Right after.
Cut off the head of the Hydra and it just boop, here's all these other options. But yeah, so after you could put many, many songs onto these burnt CDs, the MP3 players started being, they were already out. I remember like in my time of burning these file format CDs, the original iPod was already out. I just couldn't afford one of those.
They were expensive.
You better believe I wanted one so bad though.
Oh yeah. It was a status symbol.
It really was. Definitely is now. If you still have one.
I still have one.
You do?
It doesn't work. But it's cool.
Yeah, they're very cool. So the little like flash drive sized MP3 players were on the market though. And that's when I finally was able to enter the digital realm, the fully, I guess CDs are still digital, but I don't know. I got to enter that world and I've remember this so vividly where I got it home. I was so excited. I started putting songs on there and ran out of room so fast. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can put more on a CD than I can put on this little MP3 player I just paid probably close to $100 for. And why? What's happening? And figuring out what kind of software I could get so I could like lower the size of all these MP3s, downgrade them to fit more on there. But we got to live through it was a wild west, crazy, innovative time.
It was the Wild West.
It really was.
But that might be exactly why so many people like devalue music as a whole, because you could just do that stuff back then. Technology.
Yeah. The devalue of music is a rough one. And I know that streaming takes a big old amount of that kind of controversy or criticism. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I think that having everything at your fingertips so easily with essentially what feels like for free is going to, devalue it inevitably. It's kind of it almost feels like nature's law or something. We can get something easily and you don't have to sacrifice anything, not even money for it. Then there's not going to be value built in. But I don't know. This is a whole other just topic trail, I suppose.
We got off the beaten path.
We got off big time. To put a bow on that, I was just going to say, that sucks. I don't know what the answer is. I hope there is one.
We're starting the day off nice and depressed here.
Nice and depressed. So we've got active speakers. We've got MIDI. We've got interfaces.
There's interfaces now. What is it? Is it Audient that's making them? I mean, they're basically fully intelligent systems here. So you could hook up an entire band and it'll set the game for you.
I'm not even fully intelligent, Jeremy.
But the price is so low and the barrier to entry is so low. And even affordable microphones now. Like part of what I do on my channel is talk about microphones. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of ridiculous microphones to play with. And you can spend a whole lot on a microphone, and you can spend very little on a microphone. And both ends of that spectrum can sound perfect for what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Just the barrier to entry to get really good tracks is so low.
We talked about this for instruments in the past.
Yeah.
The barrier for entry for a good sounding quality instrument is so low. And just like the other stuff we were talking about, there's always room to get something of a higher quality. But I think our point is more along the lines of you don't have to spend nearly as much money to get something that you can create solid art with, whether it's the interface, the microphone, the drum kit, the guitar, the bass.
Yeah, right here. The Audient Evo 16. You could have 16 inputs, get 2 of these, $1,000, and
$1,000, you have 32 inputs that have automatic gain staging or gain structures on them.
I mean, well, if you got 2 of them, you'd be adding 1 into this thing. Because there's actually 2 optical inputs. I wonder, could you spend $1,500 and get 24 inputs on this bad boy? Probably. But there's a button on this thing that you can press, and it'll basically set the gain and everything for you at like the most ideal capture. So you get your band hooked up with whatever microphones you've got laying around.
Have them just start running a song, and then you just hit it.
And it's done.
That's wild.
And they sound good.
Man. They're going to take your job, Jeremy.
Took
your job. Just wait until we get those Boston Dynamic humanoid robots and they can go place the microphones for them.
I don't think it's as dark as everyone thinks it's going to be, because there are people who are like, there's just going to be so much competition. There will be. But the things that those things can't do for you is arrange a song for you, or they're not going to write a good song for you. Or on the flip side of this, if you have a killer studio and you have like all this crazy expensive gear and you can get the absolute perfect snare sound, nobody cares what your snare sounds like on a song that sucks.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. So it's like all these things are icing on the cake for good artists. And that is the first thing. So if it becomes way too easy to lean on technology.
Yeah.
But for those people who are good and maybe have like a barrier to entry, now they have access to it. Yeah, you got to fight through a lot of noise, but at the same time, how many like genius musicians are out there now and who otherwise would not have been?
Oh, totally.
Because you can't get money behind them to put them through the machine. So good and bad.
Good and bad. Always good and bad. There's obviously so much more music technology that we could rant and rave about, but those are some of the first ones that came in mind. What do you think? What has been a huge impact, either for you directly or that you think of during this conversation that we haven't talked about yet? Let us know. Drop them in the comment. Have a conversation about it. Maybe pop over to the Discord and get another conversation going about it. All that kind of stuff too. But Jeremy, what have you been listening to?
Let me pull this up. I was thinking about it this morning because I was like, what have I not mentioned yet?
It's getting harder and harder.
It is. We need to make a playlist.
We do. Oh, yeah.
Ghost Inside. I think this is a new record, too.
Yeah, it just popped up on my feed. I haven't listened through that one yet, but I do like the Ghost Inside.
This is so good. It feels very nostalgic heavy, and it just hit the spot yesterday. Oh, so good. And I don't know much about the record. It was kind of like my first listen through, but it's like this just insanely heavy, but very smooth. Like the mix of it, I feel like is really good. But
yeah, I'm excited to listen through that one. It popped up on my YouTube music feed as a new, whatever they call it, new release or something. So definitely gonna have to give that one a good playthrough.
It's
probably
tasty.
in the gym.
Oh yeah, it's a gym. Like, or if you're just mad,
or if you're just angry,
you want to clean your house or vacuum and get a little, like toss an elbow around a little bit.
Or maybe you're in a really good mood and you're sick and tired of it.
You want to be mad.
Let me be angry.
It's like positive angry though.
It is. I don't know.
Feel good mad. What?
A lot of metal sounds mad, but not all of it's mad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to fork off of our idea earlier, this episode, fork off, spork off. That's where you duel with sporks. A spork off.
I really hope you got a sport graphic.
Oh, I'm going to. You were talking about the kind of emotional side of music and how, you know, it's easier these days to be lazy using technology to kind of mask or completely skirt around any of the emotional content that could have been there in the first place. Mm-hmm. So that leads me into what I've been listening to. I re-listened to this album on my drive up here today, actually, and it's Tom Misch. I believe that's how you say his last name. Pretty sure. That's how I've always said it. Mm-hmm. But his Quarantine Session album. And I don't know the full story behind it, but I can tell you what it makes me feel. And it makes me feel exactly what you would imagine being like. The scene that's painted in my head is this lonely, confused musician stuck in an apartment. You can't leave, and you're writing an album. And man, there is no masking anything in here. Whether it's like an extra little bleep or bloop from the guitar at the end, raspy vocals, whatever it is just pure and raw, and I love it. So it's called Quarantine Sessions. I would suggest just listening through the whole album, but one of the most kind of emotionally drenched songs, in my opinion, is For Carol. So you have these really beautiful layered string parts. And just like a lead guitar that's just room sound galore. And he's not trying to make these really catchy riffs and motifs. It feels very much like, let me speak through my instrument.
Oh my.
And you can hear the fingers moving on the neck. You can hear when like he lays his hand on the pickups a little bit more unintentionally.
It's so cool.
It is so good, man. That whole album.
How do you spell that?
Misch. M-I-S-C-H.
Oh, M-I-S-C-H.
Yeah.
That's dope.
I love a lot of his other works. I've been listening to him for years, but
I love how hyper different our
they are drastically different. Tom Misch is a great listen to regardless. He has, I think, at least one really, really good Tiny Desk concert, too, that he's done. But, yeah, that's what I've been listening to. Literally today, on the way up here, like an hour ago, I was listening to it. So, I think if you stuck around this long, maybe you drop, what do you think, like do they have like a gramophone emoji? Like a record player. I know they have a vinyl emoji.
You can drop a grandma and a phone.
There you go. That's it. Drop a grandma and a phone in the comments if you stuck around this far, and we'll know you meant gramophone. Everybody else that didn't stick around this far, they'll have no idea.
What is your grandma?
Catch them off guard. If they see like multiple people comment with a grandma and a phone, they're going to be so confused, but also intrigued, and it'll be your doing. Not us.
Thank you.
Thank you, indeed. And thank you for coming back next time.
I don't mean to be rude, not looking at you. I'm saving his rec right now.
You should save the rec, too. Maybe you don't have time to listen to it right now because our podcast is still going on and you're still listening to that. But you can pop open YouTube or Spotify if you use that. I'm not going to judge you. And save these record recs. Make your own playlist and then comment to us when you say, hey, Josh, Jeremy, you guys already recommended that one. You're so dumb. And we'll say, probably.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're getting 2 records a week here. Calm down.
calm down. And we're going to calm down and get out of here.
Bye. Isn't off yet.